of this campaign against the media, a legal campaign against the media.
Just when you think the circus of the Biden administration and the snowstorm of pardons could not get any more ridiculous, you can always rely on Biden to carry things even further. Preemptive blanket pardons, no less. Watch.
A new report that the Biden White House is considering, listen to this, preemptive pardons before President-elect Trump takes office. Now, this is according to Politico. White House officials are weighing handing out blanket pardons, to those in, quote, Trump's crosshairs, in their words. Among those who could receive them are former Congresswoman Liz Chaney, Senator-elect Adam Schiff, and Dr. Anthony Fauci. Now, there's no evidence any of these individuals have requested a pardon or if they know these discussions have been going on. And Politico reports that the president himself has not been brought into the broader pardon discussion yet. It is his aides having these talks. And Fox News has reached out to the White House, Chaney, Fauci, and Schiff for comment, but they have not responded to Fox directly on those requests just yet. Emily, you can always glean what is happening by the White House response within a story. And I want to pull up the one-sentence White House response here in Politico. A White House spokesperson declined to comment on, but did not deny the discussions. That leads me to believe that this is correct. These discussions are ongoing.
This is truly ridiculous and goes even further than the already outlandish Hunter Biden pardon. In this case, blanket pardons, and we're not talking about specific acts here, but pardons for everything and anything. So they could have cheated on their taxes in addition to the more egregious issues, and they would be pardoned for that as well. Some people mentioned here are by the by, but someone like Anthony Fauci, this is someone who has very serious issues to answer, issues that were life and death for thousands upon thousands of Americans, like funding gain-of-function research, various health measures that had no scientific basis, to not fully informing about the risks associated with the COVID vaccines, or misleading on their efficacy, in fact lying to gain the results that he wanted from the American population. If you enjoy this content, please like, share and subscribe. One of those on the list was Liz Chaney.
They were most focused on Republican Liz Chaney, who has since left Congress, but was one of the top members on that select committee that investigated January 6th, 2 years ago. And in that report, they say that Chaney, they question the way that she dealt with witnesses and the way she conducted herself on that committee. They say that she should be investigated herself for the way that she conducted herself.
Liz Chaney, one of those mentioned on this list, clearly has questions to answer regarding the January the 6th Commission. If she was in fact coaching witnesses in terms of what they should say, as has been alleged, then this is something that clearly needs investigation, and a pardon would be highly inappropriate. It would be greenlighting effectively any and all political behaviours in Congress, provided it led to the political advantage over those opposed to your side of politics. Then we come to MSNBC's Stephanie Rule.
And I'll tell you one other example. The day after Donald Trump had that crazy rally at Madison Square Garden.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I rolled the dice and I called him on the phone. And he answered!
Of course he did! Of course!
Rule first up mentions the crazy rally at Madison Square Garden. This is the sort of comment that lifts the veneer of a professional journalist and lets you see the bias and ugliness that lies beneath. And then we have this sycophantic, simpering compatriot who, when Rule says that Trump answered the phone when Rule called, bursts into a childish display of course he did, and with associated exaggerated body movements. Pathetic. And just how did Trump respond to the request for an interview with MSNBC?
Yo, can I have an interview?
And
He
he
told me to go
answered.
fuck myself.
I cannot add much to a highly appropriate response, given that it is evident how the interview would have progressed, given that Rule here gives a brilliant insight into the sort of entitled person she is. Then we get Jake Tapper's ridiculous response to the ABC George Stephanopoulos defamation scandal. He starts by going to Trump's comments.
Of this campaign against the media, a legal campaign against the media. We heard him go after many other news outlets today. Take a listen.
So I'm going to be bringing one against the people in Iowa, their newspaper. We're filing one on 60 Minutes. We're involved in one which has been going on for a while and very successfully against Bob Woodward. We have one, very interestingly, on Pulitzer, because reporters at the New York Times, Washington Post got Pulitzer Prizes for their wonderful, accurate, and highly professional reporting on the Russia hoax.
Tapper seems to be outraged that the media should be held to account. Perhaps he thinks that the media should be allowed to continue to lie to their heart's content, as they've been doing in recent years. Stephanopoulos and the ABC deservedly had to pay out a large amount for their disgusting and irresponsible comments regarding Trump, and worse, doubling down, as we've previously discussed. So Tapper presumably thinks that this kind of behaviour is fine. And they wonder why they're seen as the lowest of the low. Trump points out some of the more clear-cut cases of bias. Tapper continues.
Because there was a poll that was inaccurate. The one on 60 Minutes is because they didn't like the editing that had been done to the Kamala Harris.
From Kamala Harris.
Yeah, I mean, this is wildly ridiculous.
So, Tapper reckons that a poll that is out by nearly 20% is fine. The fact is, a child with the slightest knowledge of politics would have been more accurate. Averaging the last 5 presidential elections in Ohio would have been more accurate. This was not just inaccurate, it was outlandishly so, and it fed a copious narrative for the Democrats in the final week of the campaign. And then there was the editing of a political interview with 60 Minutes. We continue.
It was a bad poll. It happens.
I'm telling you that this isn't based on what I believe. This is based on what Donald Trump is going after his enemies based on what he perceives as slights, including the Des Moines Register, which he believed he was angry about that poll. We also know that they were angry about the editing when it came to 60 Minutes because they believed it helped Kamala Harris. It helped her answers there. So clearly now they're taking that anger and moving it from just talking about it to the court of law, likely because of the fact of what they saw this weekend when they feel like they got a victory.
He himself has sat for taped interviews on Fox.
And he knows how TV works.
That were edited.
Well, he knows how television works. I mean, obviously, we've heard him behind the scenes when he's done interviews where
The
he says,
Apprentice
"Cut
was
this out,"
edited.
In terms of believing that 60 Minutes editing could potentially affect the election result, Tapper makes out that it was a nothing. Turning a meaningless word salad reply by a presidential candidate into one that was more meaningful definitely matters. Tapper equates editing an entertainment show like The Apprentice to editing a comment for something as important as presidential elections. So, to put a hypothetical to the ridiculous tapper, who actually did a decent job on the debate between Biden and Trump, should that debate have been taped and afterwards go to Biden and say, "Hey Joe, you didn't sound so good there. Want a do-over?" At the same time, maybe they could edit out Trump's zingers, like even Biden, doesn't understand his answer. So there would be no issue there. Then there is another crazy Biden policy sign out.
Two events that took place that I think are very terrible. One is that if people don't come back to work, come back into the office, they're going to be dismissed. And somebody in the Biden administration gave a 5-year waiver of that so that for 5 years people don't have to come back into the office. It involved 49,000 people. For 5 years, they don't have to go. They just signed this thing. It's ridiculous. So it was like a gift to a union, and we're going to obviously be in court to stop.
The Biden team seems to think that federal employees should not have to physically attend their place of work for the next 5 years. Remember, this work from home measure was supposed to be temporary for the duration of the COVID emergency. There is no logical basis for this extension. I completely agree with Trump in terms of reversing this ridiculous policy. So, the unhinged policy prescriptions and flurry of pardons by the Biden administration seems to see no signs of slowing up in the final desperate days of the life of the Biden administration. What do you think of the Biden team's behaviour as the current administration's days draw to a close? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.